March 21st, 2024 meeting is now called to order. First agenda item is the Pledge of Allegiance. Stacy, would you read the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The next item is executive session. The board will hold an executive session per RCW 42.30.1101G to discuss the review of a public employee, and RCW 42.30.140 to discuss topics exempt from OPMA, and is expected to last approximately 30 minutes. Thank you.
One person hold apart, and you're one Gwen. Okay, I'm teaching and learning. Okay. I never noticed the set of people in the front. Oh my God! I know.
We did. We stood back and fight these artwork.
Yeah. So, all right. Yeah, pleasure to meet you.
You on the city council?
Yes, I
bet you are.
Yes. There was a meeting last night and we were going over the comp plan. It was a lot. And, the other right. Told me, because she read my overwhelming
She's gonna be your new friend.
Yes, your interpersonal skills are amazing, your emotional intelligence is amazing. I was just trying to crack an email. I was cracking an email to see if I can connect with her and Nicole once a week, and I will read sections of the copy of the plan and ask questions. So she was so devoted. So yeah, so bring it through fire hose right now, and she picked up on that. So I really appreciate that. So yeah, and I tried to join via Zoom last week, and I was in the waiting room forever, and I had
Top three would be Northwestern, Brown, and then UW.
But we were in the executive session for a while, too, so it probably looked like nothing was happening. Just like we just did, right? It just like,
So at the start of the meeting last week, we immediately went
same
into.
as just like we just did.
That's what happened then.
Yep.
And we're getting, okay, I should have hung out
Like
then.
45 minutes of that.
Oh my gosh, okay, that explains it.
So maybe it wasn't your computer.
No, it wasn't.
It's just nothing happened.
No, because I did try to lean in, we're having bingo meetings on for the, school district, I'm excited to do that, and, you know Ed Stern by chance?
You know the name, I know
Okay,
Ed.
well, Ed wants me to champion something, but I'll build things out and see if it's a good fit for the school district, a great opportunity, but I don't know. what it will look like for me. So I will be reaching out to you, but I like to do stuff with other people, I like to do stuff to others, so. Yeah, so I'll be reaching out.
Technology.
Technology, okay.
Just remember
Okay,
down.
you guys are rock stars.
My team are the rock stars. I know who to call.
Everyone knows, when something goes wrong, but, pressure that, we need to, celebrate when everything is going right.
Yeah, right.
I hope no one has your personal telephone number, so.
Oh, they all
Correct.
So my mom worked in
All right, it will
for
probably
15
take me a
years.
few months.
Yeah.
My family, there were 4 or 5 kids.
Good to meet
The
you.
first 4 were all in Washington State, then my sister was the fifth. And she
We
went back to
are,
the university. So then we became cousins. And then my nephew was there, and honestly, you have to be really smart to get in, so congratulations, that's awesome.
And I realized I forgot to turn his report on after they've already seen the
oh, but it's going to be worth it though, but I'm thinking all the stuff is next time reading. And then, the work has been very, supportive, like this week, my mom and people.
And we'll do that back on Friday. At least so we don't forget to return.
But he has.
We're not doing big things. We're on the like the very first part of the day, did it. Sounds so weird. Because the first one had some video, and this one has no, it's just sound, and has sound retention. That's what you hear, the sound's way better. That's,
Oh, yeah.
Well, Ed Nevins is here on Monday. We're meeting with him Monday at 9:30 to start doing some. And Ed Nevins, it's a company that we work with, and they're coming in because we're redoing all of the. We're gonna have a true like school board meeting AV set.
Yes, with WebEx instead of.
WebEx, multiple.
It's really well.
There's gonna be one, all the mini mics, all the mini mics will go away. So there's gonna be one thing right here. One mic. Yeah.
There'll be one that drops down and does.
And we'll have a camera that focuses on speakers, and then we'll also have a camera that does boards. Yeah, we're excited.
I was in my business because I was thinking. I was like, I think I covered everything but just in case. Oh, it's just a point of battle lately. But things, I mean, the valley is deep, but there will be better things. We'll be hiking up there. So, but I. There we go. What's that? I'm learning. So she brings some skills with her, she probably has, and great interpersonal. Yeah.
Okay, I was like, I think, okay, I was saying, I thought so too, but I'm something else, I'm like, wait a minute. Did it work? Oh. I'm trying to find a line too.
But there will be things like this. Yeah, that's, I mean, it wouldn't matter. Sunday I have nothing. Yeah.
You know, obviously,
But I need to do yeah.
I'm glad to hear that. I don't know what she looks like.
Oh, yeah.
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 Oh, see, I can't quite read your name, please, but. Yes, they are. They immediately went into an executive session, which now explains why I said, what's going on? Why am I just in the weight room? So that explains that, yeah. So how are you doing? How are you doing? So they have
start to build to understand.
Yeah, I'm always.
Oh, no. Oh, I thought you said, no, I thought you said that.
That might not fall into general laws. So I don't have to do it.
Don't worry about the you know, he really wants to retire. It's really hard to find.
So sorry, yeah.
And so if I need to kind of fill in the gap, I could kind of have some.
So relative to golf,
It's a quick class or an intro class, so.
how are your first family members?
No, it's through the Coursera.
No, I'm saying that.
For sure. Yeah. We get the deals. That and
Did they
just
still
having-
take them back? Well, they could, no, they were busy, well, the docs were probably like, great, we got to that point, yeah. You know, we had, someone
Or some other
come
area.
to us who is,
I don't know what's the community. All of it.
library, wanting to have a conversation, you know, some
Every once in a while.
And she has a bit of a connection with the group on Cambridge.
So that that's go up that
We've talked about it, but whether I retain that information or not is a whole nother. We have that queued up so late.
Trying to figure this is all coordinated.
Yeah.
Multiple people and all these different. Sure, a lot of things.
It's not all complimentary. We have a
Yeah.
Or they do those in-season breaks.
I don't know what the right
I typically like to wait until the show is and then just how long it takes to just watch through the whole thing. We would watch it early back. Which is pretty good. Especially with Jenny. I think there's gonna be another season. Great closure. They could have just left here. Yeah, I wanted the one with the alternate district stairs. You know, like every season is a whole different, which is kind of neat. I love their movies too. It's on this movie. He's got the dog.
Are they, did they leave and go in? Ah, yes, the place where everything changes.
Is that what that is? Okay.
Hello. I told my daughter I wish she had taken a picture of the agenda last time, because you can prove then that they did make a change even though they denied it.
But we're hoping.
Well, they're getting smarter. They don't have the agenda up there, so we can't tell what they changed.
No, I think that podium here, people go up to top, it's hard to see.
The response of the board is no matter where you sit.
So it should be moved down to the period. What if they moved their desk
Yeah.
against that side? And all the chairs were in a circle, so it wasn't this oppositional.
I like that. Today is the day, don't I wish?
This is my daughter's notebook, I grabbed it, she's like.
Well, I'm just so upset about the way they're doing things. It doesn't pass the smell test.
Wow, you're really on it, okay, I'm like just wide-eyed and hoping, I'm not optimist, sadly so.
I tried being optimistic for a while. I had the optimistic knocked out of me.
Well, I'm gonna hang in there, I'm gonna hang on.
Pretty
hard. So. And then voices such as yourself will help you to kind of keep that reality lens there.
You can always hope, and that's a good thing. I wouldn't take hope away from anybody. But unfortunately, I'm very old and I've lived through a lot of reality.
You've seen a lot of reality.
And you have too, haven't you? Oh, yeah. Although I'm much older than you. I'm coming up to 88.
Wow. Congratulations. Holding strong, okay?
I'm just headed toward 74.
Well, you're just a child. I've got clothes older than that. Well, we'll see what happens.
I said 30 minutes, so 6 o'clock.
Everywhere else.
But they're pretty good about it.
As soon as they are.
Oh goodness, tell Miss Claudia I have a
They don't have the agenda up there this time.
Yes, no, it's unofficial.
Well, there's
She's
hardly
taking her
anybody
last
here.
assignment
Hi,
and did her final
Do you remember me?
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
She is.
I used to do the letters for all the kids for the, I used to do the financial pieces for the living room. Thank you. I've always been.
Conflict with another meeting, and I didn't know if I would be able to be here last night, so Art couldn't speak.
Oh, yeah, it's a fact.
I've still got a lot to say.
Yeah, I bet, I know,
Information regarding her events.
But I think what it is if you drag on long enough, people will get tired and it'll all go away and they count it.
that the squeaky wheel theory?
Oh, all political offices do that. If I screw up, all I have to do is keep my head down for a while and it'll all go away.
Yeah.
I don't like to bait our answer anymore.
Well,
That's wrong.
do you report?
Yes.
Well, they're technically.
They're public figures, spending public money. I don't understand why they're all.
Thank you, when I left, I had parents
responsibility.
coming to me and going, who do I contact?
Unless you
And I
can track them,
kept all the records, so I said, contact.
Yeah. I have yet to see that.
Yes, I
The
know.
thing is, if
3
you
years
go
after
into
high school
public
graduation, you were allowed
that kind of attitude,
access.
and participate in that kind of culture, it goes around.
Well, that, I know
To me,
when,
and
like,
they're
my
just
son
wrong,
graduated,
but I probably lived to, my values is still of another era.
awards and something for the
There's a lot that,
Then she
there's.
does program, and then, but Rolling Reader program provided housing because
Oh,
we're
were you,
in that.
the rolling reader program, were you a part of that?
No, your daughter just saying me this.
I just like her.
Some and things about how it's rated.
My husband and I were snowbirds for many years. But where we went down in Arizona, we lived in a RV park.
I wanted to make sure
And I
that
went
everything
around
was correct.
to my neighbors and the people that were in the
Without
clubs I
getting
was
the
in,
funding.
and did presentations on the rolling reader and got donations, which I then forwarded to my daughter.
Yeah, that's a, looks like a fairly large program.
It was a wonderful program, and the fact that it was
My supervisor
deleted
first picked up the program, it was just
never made any sense.
was
Well, some of those.
went back to the.
Some of them
No,
have to
they
take
just
over.
got back to me, they
And
did,
pick it up
they
again.
said, yes.
And it's a lot, looks like this is a lot of work.
And then I found out that
And
my
so
salary
that's-
was much
that's
lower
fine.
than
Just let
I
people
paid,
know that
because
they're
she
jobs and
ended
they're-
up, how come
Well,
your
for my
rents are
daughter,
so
it was a
expensive?
family.
And then I
That's what-
found out,
that's what
it's
it is.
because, okay, I'll raise that too, so I was able to do that.
And then somebody put that
I'm just
kind
saying,
of involvement. It's a difficult thing to do, but what I don't get is, she was doing just fine, and she was allowed to do it for 8 years. And then all of a sudden, in their eyes, she's incompetent. If she made a success of it being incompetent, can you imagine what she would have done if she was competent?
Yeah.
The adult volunteer, right?
That would be
And she
impressive.
said, I see, I agree, 12 parents, so you should have to
She raised over 3
She
years.
didn't know that when you were saying that, once they got to
And then she was later saying, "German money over the district." Who knows?
I will be.
No accounting. That's what the people that I raised funds from really liked. She sent reports and pictures and told them exactly where the money went.
I know, well,
Yeah,
I'm
it's-
just very hopeful that somehow I don't know, I'm retired.
There shouldn't be.
They have a different vision. You know, it's,
So it's not something I can like go back and just check.
The kids liked it, the parents liked it, the community supported it. To just throw it in the ash can, I'll never understand that. I took your seat,
Yeah,
and I'm chewing this guy's ear off.
Yeah, they like it.
Is that Stefan? I like that.
He used to be that when I was growing up.
I like it.
So So there's only my family. And they're very good. Not because I had anything to do with it. It was all natural causes, I promise.
So, I mean, you don't have to keep holding that, but I thought
No,
you might be.
cool.
This is one that's picked.
What? What?
Yeah, when he was leaving.
Oh, no, that's
Yeah,
not.
yeah,
Yeah, I'm just kidding.
but this is, yeah.
Well, you're my kid.
So you're trying to find somebody in the district that's like a educator as well?
Well, the way that it started was, it started at Suquamish, and it was about to go away. There was like, I think, $1,200 and I had like half hour to complete the program. And I looked at it and went, wow, this is a great idea. High school kids, helping kids read. Where are the statistics of what they did and who funded it? So I researched it and found that the program worked. So I went back to the original grantors, the Superintendent Foundation was one of the largest. And said, I know you haven't heard from us in a while, look what your program did. Please get some more funding. And I had a meeting with Greg Boy, who was Adjournment. And he said, yes, we will fund you for 2 years on our way. Yes, as soon as you get, grant funding, every dollar is funding, every month. And when I got funding, I was. And then when high school students spend their money, time teacher for the client, I would do what, how many hours? And that was turned in on a spreadsheet to the planning department, that was, Susan at that time. And, when they enrolled in college, constant enrollment in college, I would look up how much.
That's only like 6.5 hours.
And it was always a letter at the end of the year showing how much they earned and if they were in the previous. So they would proof of enrollment in college and the county department would pay, was it college, enrollment, Now, we also used it all volunteers. In fact, the numbers should be on there, of how many were students and how many volunteers.
Yeah, yeah. So that in the district side,
Patty
because
created, after 8 years, she decided that, oh, actually, they were looking at my position, what are you doing? Because I got a letter of endorsement from two previous superintendents got program. And I was able to present those to them their endorsements. And I got one from Patty. And then in 2015, after telling meeting with them, they said, well, we're gonna create a position for you so that you can run these programs, properly, proper funding, proper salary. Great. Then they opened up a position called the Director of Student Support Services, and Kimberly Eimer came in, she was 6 figures salary, she took over this program, and I was and I couldn't do anything that I was doing before. So what I did was, during the time that I had, I made sure that all the grants that I got in my I didn't register like that. This is what your money did, of course, more details depending on what those priorities were. And then I got another position, so I could get a paycheck, because I knew that the funding wasn't coming in, because I was the funder. I raised the money for my salary. There's no money, there's a single job. So I ended up as a record secretary. That's But I was very excited for that year. Yes. It started very small. Yeah, I have for each year, and I actually have the total money. Overall, over 8 years, it was a little over $300,000 that I raised for funding both from grants, community donations. Yes, she was surely. Of course. Yes.
Okay, so the next item on the agenda is a study session. The board will review the 2024-25 budget development. Rachel Davenport and staff, would you please present the 24-25 budget development update to the board?
Yes, absolutely. I'm gonna call Mike Berlino up to the podium, and if you have any questions, Mike is available to answer those. Welcome, Mike.
Good evening. So we'll give a presentation, so.
You need to get unmute on. Make sure that's green. Yep. Okay.
There we go. Thank you. Okay, so 24-25 budget update. There's a slide a little bit later that kind of talks about the timeline. We've talked a little bit about the timeline earlier. So we're still pretty early in the process from the perspective of the legislature just completing their work. And ultimately, we don't have to have anything to the public until July 10th. Not that there won't be a lot of work between that, but I'm just gonna kind of go through a few things that we're working through and maybe some, but mostly I think probably better news than what we might have thought about a year ago, let's say. So the first thing on the considerations is that our ending fund balance for this year is expected to exceed what we had budgeted when we budgeted for 23-24, which is a good thing, exactly. So the history of the fund balance is that the district has kind of built a larger reserve by expending ESSER funds. The idea was that over time, the reserve would come down to a number that was more closely, it was closer to the board's fund balance policy, which is 5%. So for 5%, really that would be on a $100 million budget, only about a $5 million reserve, which isn't really a large amount. So we kind of needed to have a larger number than that. When we went into this school year, we had budgeted for an ending fund balance of around $7 million. I think we'll be over $10 million when we get to the point in time, August of 23. I do estimates throughout the year of where I think we're going to be, just to get a good sense of how things are tracking. So that's a good development. So that's a positive. The second bullet is that actual enrollment is in line with budgeted enrollment, but still lower than historical amounts. Everybody's aware we were in the high 5,000s. The numbers came down during COVID. They really haven't recovered. We budgeted this year just students in the building, not including Running Start, not including ALE. 4,999. The estimate for right now is that we'll be right about 5,012. So that estimate, Rachel and Jason had a lot to do with, and obviously was really pretty spot on. Within 13 kids is huge, and we predicted it, so that's a positive thing. The third bullet I want to explain a little bit about. Local levy collection for tax year 25 will be limited by enrollment cap, and I've had a couple questions about what does that even really mean. So in 2022, the district passed a 4-year levy, EP&O levy for 23, 24, 25, and 26. When the levy was set, there were dollar amounts that were projected for what the expectation was that would be able to be collected. So for example, in 2024, the number was $17,777,000. The state, however, in the McCleary, whatever you want to call it, I always call it a scheme, not in a bad way, but just the plan that they put forward was that you had a couple options for setting what the levy cap or levy lid would be. And it was either $1.58,000 or $2.58,000 times the assessed value of the district, which for our district would be well in over $30 million, much higher than the 17 million you see here. The lesser of these two. The second is what is your actual enrollment multiplied by an amount per student. That's what I refer to as the enrollment cap. So in 2024, while the voters approved a levy of $17,777,000, the number that we actually had the ability to collect was only $16,676,538. So right around $1.1 million less. So when you think about some of the challenges that we deal with on an annual basis in terms of just balancing the budget or eating into the fund balance, that's over $1 million that the voters authorized that we can't collect by law. There were some conversations in the legislative session this year early about ways to maybe change that calculation, but nothing moved forward in the legislature, so everything kind of remains the same. So when we look at 2025, the voters authorized a number of $18,706,500. So a little more than 18.7 million. Right now, based upon, it's enrollment for the previous year. So if we look at this year's estimate of enrollment and then we multiply by that amount per pupil, which is, it's inflated by the Seattle CPI, that number is a little less than 6% for the calculation. But the max that we would be able to collect based on estimates right now is $17,536,300. So again, another $1 million less than what the voters had authorized. And that's just what we live with until the law changes. Now, the positive thing is, I mentioned we only collected 16.6 million in 24. That number is going to jump to 17.5. So that almost $1 million, that will help us as we're building the budget for 24, 25 when we put all of this together. I'm happy to answer any questions at any point in time. If you want to ask them now, you can ask them if you want to ask them
That was
later.
my question, was what the enrollment cap was, so thank you for
Yeah.
explaining that.
Sure.
Can you just quickly clarify, I'm not sure if Bill heard this before, but 5%, kind of what that equates to in actual operating? Because I know we've discussed this in the past, but if we only had 5% and we didn't get any money from the state for some emergency.
For reserve you're talking about?
Like, yeah, if we had our 5% reserve and that's all we had in the bank,
Yeah.
and the state didn't pay us our allotment, some reason there's an emergency, what would that mean in real operation of the district?
In real operation of the district, if it gets that low, you run into the possibility of having a month where you don't have enough money in the bank to make the payments. Now, you always have the money to make the payments because the county would step in and they would do we could do interfund loans, or we could do a borrow from the county. I've worked in districts before where we had to borrow from the county every month and then pay them interest on the warrants that we had to borrow on, and you don't want to be in that position.
Right. We talk about it, 5% basically equates to like a month's salaries, or 2 months of salaries.
You're talking about 5 million, that's probably,
Yeah.
probably fairly close to accurate, but you run the risk of having too big of a number, because if you have too big of a number, you should be spending the money on the kids in the system. But if it's too low, it's like we're like the US, where we're having to borrow money to be able to make all of our payments, and we don't really want to be in that.
Just so people can understand, 5% may,
It's about a month.
yeah, it's really only a month of running the school.
Yeah, it's not much.
Yeah, it's not a lot. Now, while we're sitting on a big pot of money, it's about a month to keep the schools running.
Yeah. The next bullet is federal COVID funding was spent, exhausted. We spent all of our ESSER money We had ESSER 1, 2, and 3 that we had over a few years. That's paid it out. Where you see in the paper now, a lot of districts going through budget reductions, deep budget reductions. A lot of those are the ones that got a lot of COVID ESSER money, and they're finally to the point where that's gone, and now they're having to kind of face what probably we and other districts have faced earlier. The fifth is just information. Spending one-time money on ongoing expenses is not sustainable any more than it is if any of us at home try to make long-term commitments just using the savings that we have in our bank account. It's not good management. And then the final one is early indication from the Washington State risk pool, where we receive our insurance from, is that we will be looking at a 15% increase. And then where I've stated inflation continues to be an issue, that's outside of insurance, just kind of across the board, the costs continue to increase. And I received a question about whether that was just the 15% related to the pool was just related to North Kitsap, or is that kind of a pool-wide thing? It's a pool-wide thing. It's not directed at us. It's everybody's facing a similar situation. Legislative update. So I think it was the 7th or something like that. That session ended a few weeks ago, and there were a number of things. The first thing is a lot of people are interested in what the implicit price deflator is. IPD is the number that the state allocates to school districts for what most contracts are based on salary increases. So IPD is typically what people have in their contracts for salary increases. So the number for next year from the state is 3.7%. And I would remind everyone that we had 7 contracts that were negotiated last year. So that's one thing. We don't face the uncertainty of what labor costs will be as we build the 24-25 budget like we did when we built the 23-24. IPD 3.7 for 24-25. Special education funding across the state underfunds special education by a significant, like we're talking hundreds of millions of dollars. It's a lot of money. The one thing that they did this year, am I covering some? We've got a loud voice, they can probably hear me without it.
We're getting reports that Zoom is not getting audio, so that's what we're checking on.
The special education funding, the way that it works is that we have special ed students in the district, we have basic ed students identified. There's a cap on how many kids the state is going to fund. That cap at one point was 12.7% of basic ed students, that's all they funded up to. That number went to 13.5%, it went to 15%, and ultimately the legislature in this session increased that cap to 16%. North Kitsap is as of right now at 12.44%. So we're receiving funding for all the students that we have within our special education program. So this particular movement by the legislature isn't something that's going to impact North Kitsap today, maybe in the future it would at some point. And there's a lot of districts across the state that are over that 15% cap, so it will definitely help those districts. I mentioned that we spend approximately 3.5, and I had a question about, is that, like, historically we spend that much? Historically we've been right in that 3.5 if we go back at least the last 3 years. So we're not seeing big increases in that. There were some funding increases in 23-24 that helped us in special education, but that number is roughly what we've been supporting special education out of our EP&O levy for the last 3 years.
So it's not that so all of our kids identified as special ed are getting funding, but that funding's still not enough.
Correct.
Per student.
Correct.
So that's why we're still spending our local levy, because the amount per student is just not high enough. And then, one of the bills that I had brought up that did pass is, so for the safety net funding, when we have a student with exceptionally high needs, exceptionally expensive needs, we can apply individually to cover those. One thing that they did do this session is passed a law change that says if a district applies for those funds and doesn't make a substantive mistake in their application, So you forget to check a box, you spell something wrong, forget a minor, then then that application can be fixed. In the past, we made any mistakes at all on that application, it just got denied.
Threw it out.
So now the benefit of the doubt is there that, and so we'll still get the chance to get that funding, because some of our individual students have very, very high needs, and this money is not sufficient.
Yeah, so the state funds X, let's say it's 9,000, then we get some federal money on top of the state money. And then the state expects districts for each student to spend, let's say up to $20,000 out of their local funds. Anything over that number then becomes safety net eligible and we receive. So I will say that that's accurate. They do throw out a lot, and they were worse in previous years. I think, talking to Lori, our district is well over 90% success on what's applied for. And the number that we're thinking we'll probably collect this year is around 1.3 million. So it's a pretty significant number. If you think about that number over, yeah, it's a lot, because we gotta spend about 25 to 30,000 before we even get any of that money on every one of these students, so it's.
We're gonna, take about a 5-minute recess and then be back, so don't go back to your seat in the back, but just quick 5-minute recess.
Sure, sounds good. Tremendous, I could do it 3 times. Did you drive it because you could? Yeah. I guess you're right. Can you?
Hi, Stacy.
The host would like you to unmute your microphone. You can press *6 to unmute.
Oh, whatever just did, gave audio.
So that one is on.
The host would like you to unmute your
This one is
microphone.
on.
Yeah,
You can
so
press
then we just
*6
need that
to
one, 'cause that one's
unmute.
not on. So we should be good.
Test. This isn't producing anything.
The host would like you to unmute your microphone.
You need to do
You
that
can
one.
press *6
Star
to
six.
unmute. You are unmuted.
You are good.
That was the Zoom account here. There we go.
So now this one needs to be muted. This one is,
It is.
This one is.
That was a phone.
Yeah, that was my phone.
okay, we're good. Sorry.
Since people on Zoom couldn't hear anything that's taken place, could you have this presentation started at the beginning?
Thanks, Mike. I was gonna say, pick up where we're at. If there's anything, anybody have any questions from the beginning? If not, if we can go over this next slide.
Yeah, so where I left it at was prototypical school staffing allocations, adjustments. So the state provides money to school districts. We count kids. Those numbers of students go into a prototypical school formula, which is 400 kids, let's say, in elementary, 600 in a middle school, and 900 in a high school. There's teachers, there's counselors, there's social workers, there's all kinds of positions outlined in the formula that then drive staffing units that we then receive salary dollars for that number of staffing units. It comes to us as an allocation, and then school districts can spend that as they see fit, as a local school board chooses to do so. In the last few years, they've boosted a lot of the SEL positions, the mental health types of positions. So you can, and in this particular, the first bullet on here where it says increased para office support staffing ratios, K-12, there's been a lot of talk about the underfunding of salaries for paraprofessionals in districts in the state. And there were proposals from the governor, I think, and from OSPI, Superintendent Report, to boost the amount of money per position. Rather than doing that, they adjusted the ratio to generate some more positions, not necessarily with the intent of hiring more positions, but really just driving more money out to the school districts. I received a question from someone, I'm not exactly sure where, but around the first bullet, the money was allocated effective this year, not effective in the next year budget. So in the next few months, in the apportionment distribution to us, they'll go back, calculate what it should have been for the whole year for 23-24, and then distribute the money to us. I think, I'll wait till I get to the next one, I'll tell you what I think the cost is. The second bullet is increased counseling staffing ratios, K-12, effective 24-25. Increased social worker staffing ratios, K-12, effective 24-25. Both of those positions, some districts hire people, they call them social workers, some districts call them counselors. There's all kinds of different names, but they just wanted to make sure that they were increasing the allocation to generate some additional staffing. That's effective for 24-25. And again, there's actually compliance language with those bullets, where you have to show in the district you're staffed at the level they're funding you. If you're over that amount, then you can use those dollars for however you choose to use those dollars. And the last bullet I put on there was after ratio adjustments, notificates that we'll continue to fund positions in this area from the levy. So we still have levy funded positions even after they change this. So the likelihood is that money comes in, it helps us pay for everything we're already paying for. It's not gonna end up generating additional, that's the likelihood.
So the 3.7% salary increase, is that for everyone?
It's anyone that's well, everybody ends up getting it. We only receive the money from the state for the positions that are funded in the formula. So if we have unfunded, let's say we're funded for 300 teachers, but we have 340, those 40 are all paid for out of the EP&O levy. And then in addition to that, they fund a salary of X. And if we have things that go beyond that, whether that's a teacher, whether that's a custodian, whether that's me, whether that's anybody, those dollars also come out of the EP&O levy. So the 3.7% will cover most of the money that we end up paying out, but not all of it.
It's one of the great failings of the prototypical model, is it doesn't pay realistic. It pays based on a model that was generated decades ago that doesn't have any real bearing on what our schools are laid out as. I mean, there are several key positions up here. I always go back to nurses. I mean, I think they raised nurses last year, so we're at what, 1 point something now instead of 0.9.
Yeah.
But, you know, we have 10 campuses and they fund us based on our number of students for one nurse. And, you know, that's unacceptable, but that's how they fund us. And I've always said, you tell me the parent that's gonna wanna hear talk about prototypical model, FTEs, funding models up, when their kid gets hurt and the nurse is at another building, because we don't get funded for it. So we fund more nurses out of local levies. It's an example of how this model is just flawed. And years ago, we stopped using the word enrichment here. Jason Rose suggested it, and we had a really robust conversation up at this table about using the word enrichment, and would that offend our legislators? And I said, I will publicly apologize to them if they ever get us to a point where we truly can run an enrichment levy. Because we are not. We run basic operation levies. Because this does not
A lot of people don't know
fund.
that there's unfunded mandates that come down from the state that we're mandated to do, but there's no money really to do.
Right, I stood up and I asked, I'm losing her name right now, but the senator who runs the education committee, because she was really pushing to make computer science a required graduation credit this year, rather than last year she made it something that should be offered at every school. And what I just asked her was, please understand, while computer science is a great idea, great, let's have it in our schools. But please understand that every single time you do this, and you add a requirement, and you don't add money, or you don't take away something, we don't have the money for it, and you force our students to choose. Now I have to choose that. I can't take 4 years of band. I can't take 4 years of engineering. I can't take a 4th math class, which isn't required for graduation, but maybe the college I want to go to requires it. So every one of these unfunded mandates that's not covered by this model, every one of these great ideas takes away. And if you don't pay for it, you hurt the kids, you hurt the staff. And she thanked me for my comments, but she still voted to pass it, so, you know. So, yeah, I will apologize for my comments about the prototypical model the day they fix it.
The last thing I want to mention from the legislature was there was a lot of feedback provided to the legislature about the cost of inflation. The price impact it is on school district 15%. I think our insurance increase was like 24% last year. Well, the typical increase from year to year for MSOC funding, which is the material supplies operating costs, that would pay for these types of increases was maybe 2%, 3%, real low, not even close to what it needed to be. So they did add $21 to the total allocation per kid in the district. And then they made that retro to 23, 24 as well. So between the two that they made that were retro, maybe about $240,000 to $250,000 that will help us in 23, 24 be closer to a balanced budget this year.
Yeah, this is the one I talk about a lot, because we were asked by WASDA to ask for this, to go to every legislator and ask, because a lot of the other asks helped some districts. Maybe they helped certain districts a lot, but they didn't help every district. This helped every single district in the state, because every single district is struggling here. And what happened is, they heard enough of us that one of them then went back and drafted a bill. And instead of just increasing the budget allocation, they drafted a bill that put it in the model, so it now will carry forward, instead of just being a one-time increase. So I absolutely appreciated that, because that's a better result than we were. It's maybe not all the money we asked for, but it's a better result than we asked for.
Something, right? And then that new number is tied to 1.9% inflation, which isn't really a realistic number, but it is what it is. Assumptions for the budget: enrollment flat to slight decline. I mentioned that we were right around 5,000 that we budgeted this year. I think we're budgeting next year like 4,960. So about 40 less than what we have. And primarily that's focused on a lower enrollment count in kindergarten, because we've seen the kindergarten classes kind of decline over time. So that's what we have in the budget. Other revenue sources approximately unchanged. That's other than the money that comes through for salary increases and the things I mentioned, everything is just kind of standard. Non-basic ed state revenues increased by approximately 3.7, reflected in that's just supporting what I said. And then flat staffing for 24-25, what that means to me is the enrollment that we have in the budget generates staffing. We don't see RIFs for next year. We don't really see it. There may be small increases here, there may be small decreases, but for the most part, everything should be pretty status quo in terms of what we have this year. Other than if we had been budgeting for a significant enrollment increase, we would likely, the attrition, have a few less teachers, that type of thing. But we're really not budgeting for a significant change in enrollment. Next steps. We're waiting for the state OSPI. There's a report, they put this F203, which is where we plug the kids in and we see what the real numbers are that we're gonna use for budget. We gotta wait for them to do that. It's March 21st. I think I mentioned, no, I didn't even mention, but March 21st, we've got March 21st until July to have a budget available to the community. A lot of that is just work behind the scenes, making sure we've got all the people in right, we've got the salary schedules in right, we've communicated with all our program managers, we've done all that work. That's ongoing. I've got listed district finance committee meeting April. I think it'll probably not be the week after we come back from spring break, but the next week, because I think that would be the week of the 15th, and I think we have a facilities committee scheduled for the week of the 22nd, so we likely would do, and that would just be a conversation probably deeper, getting in deeper to some things than what we're talking about here tonight.
Is the public invited to join those committees?
My understanding is the committees have been closed committees because they're advisory committees. The public, what I will say about the public, what's it, the fifth bullet on there, budget hearing early August date. So what we did last year, and I don't know how long before that, there was one meeting for the budget hearing and the budget approval. We're gonna split that into 2 meetings, so that there's a budget hearing where there can be questions asked, and then we come back a couple weeks later and approve the budget after people have had an opportunity, including all of you, an opportunity to see it. Not that you didn't see the budget before it was approved, that did happen, but it's kind of what I think the district might have done historically here, and certainly it's what we always did where I worked before. We always had a hearing, allowed questions. I don't know.
The hearing's new again, so this, I think when you and I talked about it, it's something that we used to do, I think, historically, and it hasn't been something that's been done where folks can ask questions, and so that is new on there, so that's why, felt it important.
The hearing, right?
The hearing piece, yeah, the early August one.
Having the hearing and then it approved the same day didn't really give you opportunity for people to ask questions, or you could ask a question, but you're gonna approve it 5 minutes later anyway, so it doesn't matter. So, go ahead.
Your question about the committee, so I mean, the facilities committee got a chance to meet, and the discussion among the committee was to look for additional members, so it'll really be up to the finance committee once they come together and they want to do something,
So there is another committee.
There's a finance committee, there's 3 board advisory committees.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the facilities is still open through the 29th for applications.
Correct, that's correct.
So if anybody, it is still open, available online, to apply.
Yeah, and I think we have some real
We
good
do.
applications already,
Yeah.
so it's gonna be exciting.
Because I'm new to the process, I'm assuming that if at early August, there's a lot of, input from the community about changes they'd like to see in the budget, then the committee could still go back and make some adjustments before we would approve later in August?
So, there is time to make adjustments if there were questions asked and there was consensus that, yeah, that makes sense, or, cause really you're directing us, or we're presenting the budget to you with your feedback. The committee certainly is giving advice and advising on how that's working, but the 2 weeks would give you the opportunity to make any kind of changes, if that was what has to happen though is by August 31st, the budget has to be approved, for the following year. And what you're really doing, and I'll talk about it more when we do it, is you're setting what the expenditure capacity is for all these various funds that we have in the district for the following year, as well as approving some things within the resolution around what we're collecting for levy and that type of stuff, but we'll have plenty of time to talk about that. And I know there's people in the audience here that have reached out to me that I've talked with, outside of committees and outside of board meetings, and I'm happy to talk to people and answer questions anytime.
Yeah, when we approve the budget, we're not doing a lot of line items, it's pretty high level, and somewhere around 84, 85, 86% of that is salary and benefits. So there's not a lot of opportunity for change, because those are contracts that are already negotiated. So there's, like Mike said, we're setting capacities and caps, but, you have a $100 million budget and 86% is already covered by salaries and benefits that are already covered by contracts. That remaining 14 million is every other thing in the district. That's out of the general fund. There's not gonna be a lot of, give.
And I
So
think that's
you can
even
answer
part of it.
questions, but there's not, we gotta keep the lights on, we gotta buy the curriculums, we gotta, there's a lot. So we can shift priorities a little bit, but there's, this district does not run there's not a lot of extra operating costs. The fluff has been cut away years ago. So it's.
And I think that's part of the benefit of the committee, is getting more people to understand how schools were and how, and just exactly what you said, that there are a lot of, I've worked in places where they didn't have committees, and it was exactly because of that, because the idea that there was a lot of flexibility of being able to do this or that, it really doesn't exist significantly, but I think it's good to have people aware of what's happening.
Yes.
Okay, and then I just had any other questions that you haven't already asked, or if I didn't touch on something you might have had a question about? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
And just to let everyone know, I did just confirm Zoom audio is working and has been working since we made the changes. I'm getting some pings and a lot of people hearing things, but we're good to go. I just confirmed.
Thank you. All right, so the next item is agenda changes. Does the board have any recommended changes to tonight's agenda?
I move to amend the personnel recs to add Rachel Davenport as interim superintendent through June of 2025.
Second.
Okay. Does the majority of the board agree to the recommended changes?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, I'm seeing a majority agreement. So the next item is item 6.1, public comment. The North Kitsap School District Board of Directors welcomes the public to this open public meeting. In accordance with board policy and state law, board meetings must be conducted in a civil, orderly, and businesslike manner, which means we must all follow the same standards of civility during school board meetings. We value public comments. If you would like to speak to potential items on the agenda, you may sign up to speak using the sign-up sheets that are included on the meeting agenda and on the school district's website. Both virtual and in-person attendees may sign up for public comment. The board sets aside a maximum of 2 30-minute public comment periods per meeting. Speakers wishing to comment on agenda items will be prioritized in the first public comment period to allow for the board to hear comments prior to board action or consideration. Individual speakers will have 3 minutes for their comments. Speakers may not donate some or all of their time to another speaker. And the person who signed up to comment should be the same person who addresses the board. No speaker may speak more than once per meeting, even if there is time remaining. Though the board will not respond to statements, questions, or challenges made during the public comment period, the board may ask district staff to contact the speaker at a later time to follow up on issues raised during the public comment period. When it's your turn to speak, please approach the podium if you are in person. If you are commenting via Zoom, you will be promoted to panelists on Zoom. You must then turn on your video and microphone to make public comment. Finally, please remember that your words have impact. We value our community's feedback and we welcome your comments. Thank you. All right, so for tonight's public speakers, we have 4 speakers signed up. We're gonna do 2 in the first period, and then we'll do the other 2 in the second period later in the meeting. So the first speaker is in person, that is Terry Day.
My name is Terry Day. I worked for the North Kitsap School District as a classified employee for 15 years and retired in 2021. I am a homeowner and a taxpayer. In the last 10 years, $12,959 of my tax dollars has gone directly to fund schools. So I have to question what I receive for my money. Now, my son graduated from North Kitsap High School in 2012 with high achievement awards in reading, writing, mathematics, and finance. When he went to college, he received a 4.0 grade level in all of his other classes, except he couldn't pass a college level English requirement class, and he took the class twice. Now, I raised $300,000 over 8 years of grant funding and community funding for our school district to revive and expand a program called Rolling Reader, so high school students could tutor our students that needed help. It was directly responsible for significantly increasing hundreds of elementary school children's reading test scores, and providing tutoring services, and gave them books to take home to encourage reading at home and of course spend less screen time. Now, high school students earn over $90,000 to be paid directly to their college tuition. Parents wrote letters to the superintendents and the school board saying how much they appreciated having this program. Then in 2015, the previous superintendent hired a six-figure salary administrator to take over the program, and it lasted less than a year. And that was after 8 years of me running it. Now, the current superintendent, I met with her in 2017. I gave her the rolling reader reports, and she didn't read them. And she stated directly to me that she was not interested in additional grant funding for our school district. The bond measure that took this board years to research and write asked for 2 new schools to be built, one of which was located near our military base. The majority of these children were our military's children. The new location for that school was to be located several miles away from the current location, farther from the military base, and placed almost right next door to an established school district school. So the bond measure also was perceived as completely ignoring one of our oldest and established schools, and that coupled with the publicized actions of our current superintendent, I believe it caused our bond measure to fail. Now, our superintendent was charged with a misdemeanor, and rather than apologizing for her actions and promising to open up communications with our community, she resigned, and she appears to be in hiding while she's fully paid on administrative leave. And no one is able, or I haven't gotten answers to how much this is costing us as taxpayers, and if she has a golden parachute in June. And these are increased costs because of also they're increased costs because of high levels of public records requests, because no one knows what's going on other than this is a private personnel matter, but it's not. So now, low-cost programs like Rolling Reader, why aren't they starting up again? Grant writer, we need a grant writer to bring in money. And also, these programs bring in more community members into our schools and focus our volunteer programs on directives with students. And they also
Sorry, your
reward
time's expired.
young adults for their involvement in efforts. So bring in a superintendent that will include our community. And in case you're wondering, my son has been in the Air Force for almost 10 years. He made staff sergeant in less than 2, and he is now an accountant. So I thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you.
And
Okay, the next speaker is Stephanie Hill.
Hi, I'm a member of the North Kids Up Schools Foundation, Board of Trustees. We wanted to take a moment to express our gratitude to the North Kids Up School District community, the school board, our teachers, and district staff. This year we completed our final grant cycle for the 23-24 school year, and we gave out a little over $99,000 in grant funds throughout the district. We funded art programs at Choice Academy, Tribal Artisan and Supplies. We've at North Kids Up High School, local artisan and supplies, jewelry, lapidary, tools and systems. Paulsville Elementary receiving accompaniments for their choir. Pearson and Suquamish both attending the Seattle and Burlington Symphonies. Suquamish is also receiving ukulele storage racks, clay and glaze, and a Cricut machine. We've been helping out with special needs students, development preschool, Paulsville Elementary, Pearson. We funded sensory quiet spaces, flexible seating, and other sensory calming resources. And then for special education and speech language pathology, we funded a touch and chat app. The libraries received extensive funding from us. We funded a subscription to Pebble Go, the early learning app in Spanish this year. We're hoping that the district will be able to carry on that subscription in the following years. We can only cover 1 year. We also are handling a subscription for 1 year for the Teen Substance Abuse Awareness, a movie called Screenagers. We purchased 150 new audiobooks for the entire district. 53 books for the permanent collection at Paulsville Elementary, and headphones for blended learning experience at Kingston High School. Also 12 sets of science and reading decodable tech materials for first graders at Paulsville Elementary. Islandwood, the Paulsville Elementary School 5th grade class was able to attend Islandwood this year entirely by the support of the community. And I wanted to share that. The parents received refunds for the amounts they paid. And so that's a huge thing that we're very happy about. We funded a large portion of that. The Paulsville Elementary PTSA funded a large portion of that. We are also funding a large project, the Salmon in the Classroom Project Revival. This project is receiving our Glenn Robbins Innovation and Education Award this year, and I know some of you are familiar with Glenn Robbins. And other things, we finance STEAM and STEM materials at Pearson, a visit from the Burke Museum and Burkemobile with Burke boxes in Finland, a trip to the state capitol for Finland, 4th graders, food and culture experts for the Kingston High School Multicultural Assembly. And then, as you've probably seen, like the elementary schools, there's new Gaga ball pits that the kids are loving, and ping pong tables and yoga mats. We couldn't have done all this without your help, and we just wanted to thank you for your support.
Thank you. Okay, next agenda item is board comments. Does any board member have a comment they would like to share with the rest of the board? Yes.
I went to the jazz concert on Saturday, and the jazz choir did an amazing job. It was a wonderful concert, and there were soloists. We kind of expected it to be group singing, but it was soloists, and they had some excellent items available for auction, so it was a great event.
Great, thank you. Any other comments?
Anyone else wants to go?
I'll just share, today I had the pleasure of visiting Kingston High School and Choice Academy, and just getting to walk around and visit some of the classrooms. And, yeah, it was just, I mean, it was just a great experience to see all the learning in action and the kids, and there's some really impressive work going on. And I mean, it just reminds me of how much I've forgotten and what these kids are learning. So I was very impressed with all the classrooms I visited and the staff, and yeah, it was a great day, a great visit, so.
Okay, thank you.
So last week, I had a meeting of the WASDA nominating committee. It was our first meeting of the year, mostly just an introduction for the new members and lay out the timeline. We will have elections this year, like we did last year. Basically, the nominating committee runs the internal elections for WASDA, so our board officers as well as our regional positions. And then as of last year, the legislature transferred responsibility to WASDA to run elections for the State Board of Education positions, as well as our ESD boards. So what we were able to do last year is take all those, the first year of doing it, actually I guess it was 2 years ago, first year of doing it, the 2 statewide boards were done through paper ballot still in the mail, whereas our internal elections were done through an electronic ballot. Last year we were able to put all of that on one ballot in one timeline, using a process that's very similar to what we do for our own regular elections. There's a filing window, you file for the position, you put statements in, say why you want to run. There's an electronic open window. We go in and we vote. WAS has done a very good job of creating a tool that pretty much only allows you to file for stuff that you're eligible for by your director area, or like the vice president position rotates between each side of the state, and then only lets you vote for what you're eligible to vote for. So this year we'll have all 4 elections. It's one of those things. The nominating committee tries to stress the importance that we vote for our we ask the voters to vote for us to get to the school boards. It's very important that we on school boards then vote for these positions, particularly the state board, the ESD boards. Traditionally, before we went to electronic ballot, our own voting was very low. By moving to electronic ballot, we've gotten better, but the numbers are still pretty low. So we want to do better with that, get folks to vote. So that position will be vacated for Director Area 4 when I step down. So if anyone's interested, that'll be a presidential appointment for our area. You know, let our Director Area Board Representative, KSB and Central and South know you're interested. So it's pretty interesting, it's pretty easy. At this point, we used to actually have to go to Olympia and count ballots. We don't have to do that anymore. We just validate. But really what you are is you're a cheerleader for voting. When the windows come out, you want to make sure there's enough people for each position and you get people to vote. So it's kind of fun, especially if you like to interact with other boards. And then we had a regional meeting last Saturday. I did grab training materials for everybody while I was there, and then of course forgot to bring them tonight. But I'll give them to everybody. I'll leave them with Corey and Rachel and you guys. But really good training. It was, if you haven't heard of it, a lot of it came from a thing called Braver Angels, which is a nonpartisan, nonprofit group effort to bring civility back into politics. So it's a lot of conflict resolution, how to talk with folks that don't agree with you. And so there was some, kind of group exercises on, engaging folks, talking about things that we've all kind of gone through. Really good work. And it was sort of a goodbye to Tim Garshaw, because he's making his rounds as he leaves as executive director. So interesting meeting. I wanted to introduce Pam Crows here tonight. Pam is the Paulsboro City Council's newest liaison to the school board. Pam joined. She's Bev's kind of counterpart coming this way from the city council. So welcome, Pam. And if you ever go to the regional, our library here in town, you may recognize Pam from there. One thing I wanted to bring up tonight, we missed something last week, and we missed an opportunity, and I'm guilty of this too. In our discussion, we talked about including our student reps more. And then we had a really robust conversation about the student calendar, the school year calendar, and we didn't ask, no, they already had to leave, but we didn't ask Laurie's opinion. And we missed the chance. And we need to engage them more. We need to directly ask them, hey, what do you think on this topic? Because we can't expect them to interrupt us as we're talking and say, hey, I want to give you my opinion on this. We need to make a conscious effort. We give our opinions, we have our discussion, and then say, okay, what do you two think about this? Even if you don't adopt advisory votes, we still need to make sure we take steps to engage on each of the topics of the agenda and have them weigh in, because that was a topic that absolutely impacts the students, and they're both seniors. They've had 12 years of student calendars, schedules to have an opinion on, and we didn't ask it. So I'm absolutely guilty of it. I'm sitting there staring at Laurie the whole time I'm talking, and I didn't think of it until after the meeting ended. So I want to bring that up because I think it's important. They're here, we want their opinions. We've asked them to be here to give it. We need to make sure we ask it. And then last, another high point. I've been hearing a lot recently from the Parks and Rec director at the city about some amazing work being done by our students at Pearson Elementary. They came up with a project they wanted to do to where they are doing work in the American Legion Park, which is near and dear to my heart, to create pollinator gardens. And so they are working to put in basically bee paths, pollinator paths, with mason bees to revitalize our bee population. And so they've been doing a lot of work with that, and we're talking to littles. These aren't like the 5th graders. So great on the principal for encouraging that, great on the students for stepping up, teachers for supporting it. It's in the earliest stages, but great job on the kids to kind of reach out of their comfort zone, get into the community, and start doing that all the way back in 2nd grade. So good on that.
Okay. All right, thank you. The next item is board reports. Does any board member have a report to share in regard to their assigned liaison position? Okay, I know we already covered some stuff.
So, I attended the community town hall meeting with State Representative Greg Nance, And his focus at the meeting was on the ferry system, but he spoke about and made a suggestion that high schools could start offering maritime classes like Port Townsend's doing, because they canceled a lot of sailings over the last couple of years, because if they're even missing one staff member on the boat, they have to cancel the sailing. He's also a member of the State Education Committee, so we need to be aware and get to know Mr. Nance very well. And the one other thing is that the Washington State School Directors, which we call WASDA, has these monthly meetings for new directors. And so I sat in on the first one this week, and it was how to engage members of the House and the Senate to build relationships, because a lot of decisions are made at the state level and are kind of out of our control. And then next, one other thing they suggest is that we need to get used to sharing data and our stories about our district with the people at the state level.
Thank you. Anything else? Okay, the next item is Superintendent Report. Richard Davenport, please provide the comments to the board.
A couple of things. One, Rick, thanks for bringing up the pollinator. So it's been a work in progress with Pearson Elementary and Principal Frick, and I know that our kids are doing a report to Colesville City Council as well as Colesville Rotary Club in May about that, and we are looking at putting out a press release around that project, and I think I wanted to get it right there. Pollinating installation, it's gonna happen the week of April 15th, so just in time for Earth Day, so that is pretty exciting. And then I will echo what Brianne said. I was at Kingston High School today, and there were some amazing things going on, and I was at 3 elementary schools last week, and then facilities and maintenance earlier this morning, and food nutrition service yesterday, and we have some amazing things going on in the district, so thank you to all of our staff.
Okay, thank you. And then the next agenda item is student representatives reports. Would you please provide your comments to the board, and dish anything on the agenda that you want to talk about too?
Speaking on behalf of my teachers today, I had conversations with a few of them, and I heard a lot of them say they weren't looking forward to this like 12, 13-hour day where they have to teach for the whole day, and then they have conferences until 7 p.m. And a lot of them aren't getting home until 7:38. I don't know if there's something like, I don't know, but is there a reason like elementary schools and middle schools get 2 days off for conferences, but the high schools only get 1, and they have to do conferences for 2 days? That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Okay. The next item is action. So 7.1 is the consent agenda. Item 7.1.1 through 7.1.4. A motion is needed to approve the consent agenda. And I'll just add a reminder that I previously, when we were talking about agenda changes, I stated that the majority of the board agrees to the changes, but I didn't specifically say that the changes are added. So those changes that were proposed are added to the agenda, to the consent agenda. Okay. All right, do I have a motion?
Move to accept the consent agenda items 111 through 113.
So you're saying 7.1?
7, sorry.
Yep.
I'm looking right at it, I got it wrong. 7.1.1 through 7.1.3.
4. Okay, so I have,
I'll get this.
all right, we need a second for the motion. Do we have a second?
I second.
Okay, thank you, Beth. The motion has been made and seconded. All in favor of the motion?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And there are no opposed. The motion passes with a vote of 5 for and 0 against. The next item is 7.2, board action. Construction management services, Suquamish Elementary School Gym addition. The motion is needed to discuss construction management services, Suquamish Elementary School Edition. Do I have a motion? Okay, thank you, Brent. And, we need a second. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, thank you, Brent. All right, so this is, construction management services, Suquamish Elementary School Gym Edition. The motion has been made and seconded. Do we have any new comments for discussion? Okay, if there's no more discussion, I put the question to vote. All in favor of the motion?
Yes.
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 Yes?
Yes.
And there are no opposed. The motion passes with a vote of 5 for and 0 against. The next item is 7.3, Suquamish Elementary School Gym Edition. Motion is needed to discuss Suquamish Elementary School Gym Edition. Do I have a motion?
I move that we discuss the elementary school gym edition.
Okay, thank you both. We need a second. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Brant. So Suquamish Elementary School Gym Edition, the motion has been made and seconded. Do we have any new comments for discussion?
I just wondered, has there been any significant changes to the gym design than what we had proposed back in February?
Yeah, I'll answer it, but I'll have Mike come up, as well, just in case. There's not anything significant changed. What changed was, going to the school, having a conversation with the staff in the school, the PE teacher, office manager, principal, showing the blueprints, explaining, what they were actually looking at, and once the confusion around blueprints and the size of the gym was, cleared, we actually went, a few of us along with the study went to, the PTA meeting and also had Michael Davis from the study, from the architect group, give the presentation to the PTA and allow for questions of the community there. And, through both of those meetings, I believe it cleared up a lot of the misunderstanding and confusion, and it allowed them to provide us some input. So I don't know if you have something to add. I know you were at the meeting.
Yeah, no, it was real positive, so, yeah, nothing new.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, if there is no more discussion, I put the question to vote. All in favor of the motion?
Yes.
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 Yes. Okay, and there are no opposed. The motion passes with a vote of 5 for and 0 against. The next item is management reports. The management reports will be turned over to your staff board and staff to answer any questions the board has regarding some materials provided.
I should have just had Mike stay up front and he has the mic shut tonight, but the budget status report for February, I know he covered a lot of this, and actually in his intro on some of the questions that were answered, but if anybody has any questions, Mike is available.
No question, I'm just gonna make a comment, particularly for Bev and Stacy too. So WASDA has courses on these as well. I know we've gotten some recent notices on the diversity, equity, and inclusion training, which is good training and we're required to do. But that same series of training, they actually started with finance courses. I encourage you to take the DEI courses, absolutely. I also encourage you to take the finance courses. So like the one slide that's on here, general fund expenditure by program, if you take these courses, you can actually read that slide and know exactly what, like every one of those codes mean. Like they drill down that deep, which is deeper than we necessarily have to know, but it's nice to be able to look at that and be able to know exactly what it means. Like one of the exercises in it is they go, okay, we're gonna code how your trip to WASDA would appear on a budget report, like the annual conference. And so you go through and you learn how to code that. So really good training. I think there's 4 of them as well. There's 4 DEI courses, there's 4 finance courses. It was part of their onboard series that they were developing for 5 or 6 years now. Great training. You can do it in person, you can do it online, you can do it at the annual conference. But it's definitely worth it, and it makes these, I mean, they all do a great job. We're saying this every month, but it helps you the understanding. So it gives you this a little deeper appreciation of what this budgetary work means.
I had a question on page 5, the general budget status.
Why was there a spike in April
So.
in the revenue?
Right,
Which is good.
So, right, April, the county collects our local EP&O levy. And when you think about your mortgage statements, primarily those payments are in August, or April and October. So that's the spike. So the state drops their revenue a little bit, but we get a big spike because the majority of the levy money comes in those 2 months, kind of sporadic throughout the year. The majority of it is October, and you see a big bump in October also.
Okay, yes, the summary is really helpful, I appreciate it.
It's Jason created, I just keep it going.
That's
Renata keeps it going.
That's what I was alluding to, of like, if there was a delay in us getting money, like having 5% in the bank means we can pay the bills for a month. So if that disbursement was late for some reason, the state had some massive emergency, something, and they didn't send us the check, we can write checks for a month if we meet our policy, and then after that, we're out of money too. So like that's kind of what I was talking about with 5%, because 5% only pays, we can pay our staff for a month.
Okay, any other management reports? Okay, the final item is public comments. I'll just remind that the statement from previous stands. We have 2 additional public speakers.
Stacy is actually in person.
Okay, got it.
So we'll do it.
All right, thank you. So we'll just move, the next speaker will be Mindy Bel-Eva Rivera.
The superintendent wrote in the yellow, my ask is simple. Should a board member engage in a conversation with you about anything school-wide or NKSD related, whether in person or via email, please notify me immediately. If they email you, please forward the communication to me immediately. This is addressed to the leadership team, but it really should be the fellowship team. The purple section states, board members have been made aware of our communication protocol, both in person and writing. If I submit a public records request, will I find anyone questioning or pushing back against these instructions? Why was the superintendent and maybe the new superintendent is going to continue this and muzzle y'all from speaking to your parent constituents? Why did you, 3 of you, and maybe 1 of you or 2 of you, I don't know yet, it still remains to be seen. Why did you go along with this abnormal scheme when it kept you isolated from families, school personnel, and taxpayers in North Kitsap? By the way, there was a vote of no confidence taken against y'all and you last week. Did you contact that woman? Because that's a fail. That's a fail. And moving the transportation department to the north and wasting $200,000 a year is a fail. It makes no sense. Amazon is better than NKSD in terms of strategy. The reality is that 3 of you, and even you, have been cut off so long from the schools and greater communities that you don't know how to communicate with stakeholders to address their needs. This board is guilty of ignoring real substantive issues like toxic workplaces in NKSD buildings, as well as the physical and emotional injuries to school children on your watch. And I'm talking about sexual assault. Someone who truly cares about students would be holding study sessions the next available time. The NKSD school board is not being valued by the community because it doesn't have or provide value. Rubber stamping a secretive and controlling superintendent's actions does not benefit those who should benefit, and everybody would say students. And it doesn't benefit the taxpayers. This system benefits other people, and those people, I still have yet to figure that out. The result is that I don't trust you, nor anyone else who went along with this communication protocol. That sign-stealing scandal not only hurt her credibility, it hurt y'all's credibility, because y'all are her followers. I don't believe you have the votes to pass a future levy or bond in the near future. Down south in CK, voters are also citing a lack of transparency of their district leadership in how money is being spent. And their district looks pretty damn good compared to North K. You can't just wave these concerns away, but that's what y'all have traditionally done. Wave community members' concerns about transparency away. Case in point, already the acting superintendent, who was just made permanent until June 2025, y'all. No discussion. She is setting up a facilities advisory committee
Thank
to
you,
where
your time has expired.
these meetings will be closed. And they will probably stack it with yes
The
people.
next speaker is Stacy Smeckle, who I think is in person.
Good evening. I've written to you, and I've been here numerous times to give public comments. So I thought I would begin my first 20 seconds with your responses to me. Your silence is uncomfortable. Tonight, Zoom participants could not hear what was happening until 48 minutes after you began. Fail, I believe that is an OPMA violation, and any action that took place before then could be voided and should be voided. I'm disappointed that we give notice. I've given notice numerous times that we can't hear. You are paying technology staff a heck of a lot of money, over $130,000+, maybe more, and we can't get Zoom to work. This is unacceptable. And that you didn't have the agenda items listed tonight for the Suquamish gym until days later. That link just didn't work properly. And tonight, oh my goodness, you approved on the consent agenda some minutes. Minutes that I believe Ms. Davenport has been acting under your assumptions as superintendent, which make her acting secretary of the board. I'll just give you a printout of what you approved here. But it says that the public meeting closed and the executive session opened at 5:03 p.m. That's not true, but none of you addressed that the minutes were not correct. You just approved it on your consent agenda. Then how cowardly you slipped in at the last minute the appointment or the approval of a superintendent until June of 2025. If we were seeking a new superintendent, you would have included the stakeholders. And I'm not saying yet that Rachel's not the right person, but we want transparency and accountability.
That's right.
We want to believe, just fake it, that you're
Exactly.
listening to us.
Preach.
Fake it, that you're going to respond to us. Rachel tonight said that there's no need and we haven't been doing budget hearings. Well, I'll write this down because I trust you to do it. RCW 28A.505.060. Mr. Desmond and Brian, I have sent you emails. That is a requirement.
They don't know what they're
Thank you.
doing.
All right, the time is 7:15. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you.